A recent interview with Michael Rubin on Bill Simmons' podcast sheds light on some interesting Fanatics news regarding sports cards. Let's talk about this, guys. Stick around. Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. How are you doing, guys? I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of caught up in everything that's going on around the world in Ukraine. I have not been near as focused as I would like to be, but to be honest, I just can't stop thinking about what's going on and how it could affect all of us. So just interesting times. But if you're new here, we do talk about sports cards, collectibles just about every day, 5, 6, 7 videos a week, do some live streams here and there. It's fun. It's a good time. So definitely hit that subscribe button. If you like what you hear, the like button, and we will continue on. Also, connect with me on Instagram at The Personal Finance Dad and Twitter, The Personal Finance Dad. All right, so shout out to one of my hobby friends, Neo Cards and Comics. He had a great video. He had found this podcast that had recently happened with Michael Rubin, who's the CEO of Fanatics, on Bill Simmons' podcast. And I missed it. I didn't see this one, but it was very interesting, kind of some of the things that Michael Rubin had talked about. I want to zero in on one thing in particular, which I think is just an excellent point that I think isn't really talked about much and want to expand on it. So same as what Michael Rubin has said before, he said that he wants to go to more of a direct consumer model for sports cards, basically just saying that there's too many middlemen, essentially between the distributors, the retailers, the wholesalers, the secondary market, all the rest of it. So he did say that there is, the importance of hobby shops, probably not all hobby shops, but he does see importance of there being hobby shops. But he did say, look, I mean, we feel that we can grow this thing exponentially, 10x, 20x, 30x is what he had said, in this interview. Of course, these are goals. He's not, there's no guarantees with anything, but, this is just kind of the interesting variable that we talk about, because on the one hand, I do think that there are macroeconomic type factors that worry me a little bit about not just sports card prices, but prices on a lot of different things. It feels like, real estate's inflated. It feels like the stock market is inflated. It feels like collectibles are inflated. At the same time, though, this is an interesting variable in that Fanatics is a $20 billion company that is moving into this space and looking to broaden it out to the masses, which we haven't really seen that. Not since the late 80s, early 90s was there just, every kid in school, collecting cards. It was almost weird if you weren't collecting cards back when I was young, so that type of momentum kind of moving into it being more of a culturally relevant, type hobby. That is something we have not seen in 30 years. So we've had a spurt, definitely kind of the last 2 years with the pandemic, you've seen just a big splash of people getting back in, but a lot of it is dads like me and then kind of, getting their kids into it. But what if it becomes more of kind of a cultural phenomenon? If that's what Fanatics it moves it towards. They're acquiring all sorts of different companies and, sports cards everywhere. They've said, if they're going to grow it that big, there's going to have to be a variety of products. There's going to have to be, product everywhere. It's going to have to be a massive, massive effort. And I think that we're going to get there. It's just, does that adoption happen? Does the adoption happen with young people? It's already a popular hobby, but really getting it mainstream is just a very interesting piece of that pie. And then, of course, as we talk about just, real estate, the stock market, et cetera, one thing that's an interesting, piece when it comes to the stock market is, you'll hear people say, well, the stock market in general should see somewhat of a rise just in population increase as more and more people, move get into the workforce. They've got 401ks and they're putting money into it. Then you kind of see that growth. You kind of see a natural growth anyway, just because there's just more participants. And so I take that and I bring that to collectibles, and you kind of have a similar notion of, well, do prices just kind of naturally go up just based on the fact that you have more participants in the market? And if Fanatics is able to accomplish that 10x, 20x, 30x, 100x, or whatever it ends up being, even if it's 3x, if they're able to get more participants, what does that mean for prices? Now, does it mean that every single price of a sports card goes up? No, of course not. There's going to be chase cards. There's going to be stuff that's more rare than other stuff. There's going to be players that are popular for periods of time. There's going to be vintage. There's going to be all sorts of different movement. I think that's what makes this market really fun, though, whether we're talking about sports cards or any other type of collectibles. As you kind of get more and more participants, if it is adopted, this is an if it is adopted, by the masses. And that's kind of the risk, I suppose, that a large company like Fanatics is taking, is they're spending a lot of money to get into this space. And what are they able to do with it? Well, Michael Rubin of Fanatics has done a lot of really good work where he is. So he has made good moves along the way. I'm confident that he knows how to run businesses. To me, it's just more of a matter of, does the population adopt it to the size that they want to get to? And then how is that executed? How do they get there? And that's going to be really, really interesting to watch. So that was the first part that I want to touch on. The other part that I thought was really interesting that he mentioned in the podcast, and Neo also talked about this in his video as well, is the fact that trading card companies don't spend any money on marketing. There was something in the podcast about, I think Rubin had said that they're spending less than 1% of revenues on marketing. And he was like, man, that's wild. And he said in the pod that he is excited to market. And I think that would be really fun. I mean, now, if we go back to the 90s, on this channel, I posted little clips of Fleer Ultra commercials from the 90s. I'll see if I can find it and I'll throw it up. But
we're working overtime on the premiere of Fleer Ultra NBA basketball cards with tons of white-hot action, marbleized borders, 3D graphics, gold foil stamping, even a super glossy UV coating. So now that you know how much...
Anyway, there used to be card commercials back in the day, but yeah, you don't see it now, and that's something, again, is that part of kind of the evolution. So these are two conflicting things that I guess is what I'm getting at, is you have some macroeconomic stuff that's a little unsettling that worries me. Then on the other hand, you have the mega company Fanatics, that's getting in on this and is going to kind of put their stake in and do what they're going to do and hopefully build out the hobby. So it's two huge competing factors. I'm curious to see kind of where it all goes. I'm sure everyone else is as well, but let me know your thoughts in the comments here. I'll try to find that link to the podcast and put it in the video description for you all to check out, because it's all interesting stuff. And there is, speculation, but it's always good to hear from Michael Rubin. We do hear from Josh Luber quite a bit, and he's out front and doing different things, but Michael Rubin's a busy guy, not necessarily always talking about the trading card aspect. So this was good stuff. Anyway, hope you all have an amazing day ahead. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.